Breaking tonight, new fallout in the controversy over an FAA decision to ban all flights into Israel's largest airport. The ban started when a rocket landed about a mile or so away from Israel's main international airport earlier this week. Then the FAA decided to change course last night after it says it reviewed, quote, significant new information. But the change, of course, came also after Senator Ted Cruz and others raised questions about whether the ban was a de facto boycott of Israel and, in effect, a political one. Brooke Goldstein is a human rights attorney and director of the Lawfare Project. Brooke, good to see you tonight. And so the ban, the FAA says, was put into place because the rocket fell very close to the airport. On the other side is the fact that we don't have a similar ban in place over Pakistan, over Afghanistan, over Yemen, and as I pointed out last night, even over the part of Ukraine where a commercial airliner was shot down. Now, we put one in place after the commercial airliner was shot down, but in the week prior to that, we had several jets shot down there, and we did not have a ban in place. So one rocket, near this airport in Israel had people saying, really? What do you think?
I think we have to give the FAA the benefit of the doubt, given the Malaysian Airways flight being downed and the rocket landing near Ben Gurion Airport. I don't think this amounts to an economic boycott of Israel, but there are some legitimate reasons why many people think this was politically motivated. And I think the number one reason is because it was reversed in a matter of hours. And nothing has changed on the ground. The rockets are still firing. Israel has not said that there's been any enhanced security measures. The only thing that's changed, as you mentioned, is Ted Cruz, and that there's been an outcry, and people are calling for an explanation of what the decision-making process is.
Benjamin Netanyahu asked John Kerry to reverse the ban. I think that was Tuesday night he asked for that. The State Department is saying that they had new information. Perhaps they're not sharing it with us, but that they had new information regarding the incident with the rocket, and they were satisfied on additional security measures. We don't know right now. We're just going to have to leave it to the viewers to figure out what they think. Let me ask you about what happened today in Gaza, because we've been talking about the deaths of Palestinian civilians. And today our own Connor Powell filed a report talking about the bombing of a UN school that was meant to be a safe haven for Palestinians and wound up getting bombed. And watch.
Just a few minutes ago, a UN school just like this, full of kids and refugees, was hit by shelling. Everybody here is saying that they are angry. There's nowhere safe. They want the international community to help.
Israel says its troops were battling militants, but there are no reports of fighters inside the building that was hit. Still, Israeli shells destroyed the shelter. At least 16 people, including 3 UN teachers, were killed. The local hospital overwhelmed with dozens of injured women and children. The Israeli military says they're investigating the incident.
Brooke, let me ask you, as somebody who's a staunch defender of Israel and a critic of Gaza, and Hamas, I should say, when you see those babies in the hospital, and I realize that these can be the costs of war, it changes public opinion. What say you about these pictures and what happened today?
It is terrible that there are civilian casualties in Gaza. My heart goes out to the people in Gaza who are being used as human shields by a designated terrorist group whose policy, whose modus operandi is to use babies and women and innocent men as human shields. In fact, there are reports now coming from IDF soldiers talking to third parties on the ground that Hamas terrorists are running through the streets with infants in their arms, shooting at IDF soldiers because they know that pictures of dead children are horrific, and they will be paraded, and the media will take them, and they're not going to question as to how these children have died, but they're going to implicate and use them to vilify Israel, even though Israel is doing everything that it can to minimize civilian casualties. And in terms of UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Works Agency, which is the arm of the United Nations that's tasked with providing aid and education in the West Bank, for years has been hiring teachers off the Hamas payroll, has been allowing its classrooms to be used as recruiting grounds for Hamas terrorists. And they're doing this all with our taxpayer dollars. It is illegal, and yet the Obama administration, for some reason, the State Department is so easily to impose a ban on an ally, but we cannot ban the continued unbridled funding of a United Nations agency that not only assist Hamas in recruiting child soldiers, but has been caught now twice hiding rockets in its facilities, in children's schools, and then giving those rockets to Hamas to fire them at Israeli civilians.
It's insane. Brooke, stand by. As Brooke just mentioned, while Israel takes heat over that shelling of the school today, a growing number of media outlets are starting to look at how Hamas does use civilians as human shields and has been storing weapons in schools like the ones the Israeli went after earlier. Anna Balzer is the national organizer for the U.S. campaign to end the Israeli occupation and author of Witness in Palestine, a Jewish American woman in the occupied territories. Anna, thank you for being here. And so,
thanks for having me.
No question what happened today was horrific, and those pictures are terrible. But you heard the defense that Hamas places children regularly in harm's way.
There is no excuse, Megan, for bombing safe houses, schools full of men, women, and children. These are people like you and me. 800 Palestinians, roughly 800 Palestinians killed with U.S. weapons. We are implicated in this. There is no excuse.
What do you make of the fact that, Hamas, it's clear that they use civilians as human shields, that they do try to disguise weapons as babies, that unlike Israel that tries to give notice before it bombs, anything, including a civilian potential area, Hamas actually takes civilians, tells them to stay when the bombs are coming?
Megan, there's actually no evidence that Hamas has used Palestinian human shields as defined by international law. But if you would like to talk about human shields, Israel routinely uses Palestinian human shields. I've witnessed it with my own 2 eyes. Israel has used Palestinian human shields, has defended its so-called right to use Palestinian human shields as documented by Israeli journalists, human rights organizations, and Israeli soldiers themselves.
Israel, do you deny that Israel gives notice before it bombs these facilities?
If Hamas were to drop leaflets over Tel Aviv saying that unless people evacuated their houses quickly, they would be bombed to smithereens, would we congratulate Hamas on their humanitarianism? It doesn't change anything that Hamas...
How is Israel supposed to fight back against an organization whose entire mission is the destruction of Israel? It's in the Hamas charter that they want to kill all Jews.
Hamas is a red herring. The policies that Israel is carrying out against the Palestinian people have been going on for decades.
They elected Hamas to run Gaza.
Yes, but the policies that Israel is enacting are part of a pattern that goes back decades before Hamas was even in existence. And if anyone who is very serious about seeing a lasting peace in the area has to address those root causes of the violence. And that has to do with the suffocating blockade that Palestinians have been living under, the brutal occupation that Palestinians have lived under for more than 40 years, and the ongoing displacement and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians for more than 60 years. Anyone who really wants to see peace has to address these underlying issues.
Anna, thank you. I want to tell the viewers that we are now being told that there will be some news on the push for a ceasefire at some point tomorrow. We don't know whether that's hopeful or not. Before we go, did you want to respond to her, Brooke?
Absolutely. I think it's so interesting that Anna can come on television and claim that there's no evidence that Hamas is using its own people as human shields, when all you have to do is go on Al-Aqsa TV, which is Hamas TV, or listen to the statements of Hamas ministers, and they publicly admit what they are doing. So I don't understand how somebody can have any credibility going on television and lying to your audience that there's no evidence that Hamas is deliberately using civilians as human shields.
Yeah, they praise the deaths of certain of those civilians and
they celebrate the deaths
in the name of their cause. So that has been well documented. Brooke, good to see you. Anna, thanks to you as well. Coming up, the IRS yesterday had to confess that evidence it claimed to have destroyed, well, it may not have been destroyed after all. Whoops. And it did. I don't know how it found out. The Inspector General actually found out. Sorry. So we went back and we checked some of the agency's other claims about the targeting of conservatives. And up next, we have a rather eye-opening look for you at what we found. Plus, critics outraged and appalled that it took 2 hours to kill this murderer by lethal injection. What about his 2 victims? An innocent father and daughter. Have you been hearing much about their piece in this story? You will tonight.
Everybody here, from what I heard, said it was excruciating. You don't know what excruciating is. What's excruciating is seeing your dad lying there in a pool of blood.